Welcome guys to another episode of Hypixel Skyblock. So today I'm going to be talking about basically the new best mage armor set in the game. So the armor set I'm talking about is actually Crimson armor. Now the thing is, it gives much less intelligence compared to Aurora armor, and it doesn't really matter because the ability on Aurora armor sucks. It is useless. But if we look at the ability on Crimson armor, it doesn't look very good, but it has this hidden ability that when you're at 10 stacks, it does a little bit of extra damage. And when I do say a little bit of extra damage, it's basically a little bit over double your original hit. Now the thing is, this isn't only for melee, it actually works with a Hyperion or any other type of mage gear. So I decided to spend a lot of money and buy Mana Pool, Mana Regeneration, Crimson armor. Now the thing is, basically, it's Godroll Aurora attributes, but the thing is, it barely costs anything compared. It's like 30 mil total or whatever for this set. Now, I did spend a little bit extra to level up the attributes, get recombobulators, but you don't have to do all that. Now, the thing is, you do want to use Wither Goggles with your Crimson armor. And now it's time to do a damage test with Crimson versus Aurora. So I'm coming here over to the End Island where I'm using an Ender Dragon pet because that is the best pet in the end, and the 3/4 Aurora, Wither Goggles, and just some mage equipment. Now I'm doing about 3.5 million damage per hit. Now if I switch over to the Crimson armor, I'm going to be doing about 3.3 million damage per hit. So honestly, it's not even that bad because that's only like a 200k damage loss. And the thing is, my Aurora is hot 10 star and One Piece is burning 10 star. But this Crimson armor doesn't even have a single star on it. So if you upgrade it all the way, you're barely going to be losing any damage. And the next thing is, if you look at the mana you have with the Crimson armor, it's about 5,000, almost 200. And with Aurora, it's only 5,500, so you're barely losing any if you put it all into getting a good set of Crimson armor. You can even spend more and get the gemstones, because you can actually get sapphire gemstones on Crimson armor. So with this being said, when we have a 10 stack of Crimson armor, our damage increases from just 3.2 mil to about 14 million. That's nearly 5 times the original damage. Now the thing is, when would this be useful? Now there's a couple times. One, in the Nether. There's a bunch of mobs in the Nether, possibly even in Kudra, because you're going to be killing so many mobs, you're always going to be at the 10 stack. It only drops by 1 every 7 seconds. And the next thing is flares. Now for flares, you do need a Gauntlet of Contagion, so I'll be switching out one of the equipment pieces. Now, flares are basically always occupied, so I'm sorry to whoever this person is. I'm going to borrow a couple real quick. But I'm 2-tapping in the Crimson right now, which is not ideal. So once I'm actually at the 10 stack, I am easily able to 1-tap the flares, when before I was only able to 2-tap them. Now, the next thing this will be useful for is actually doing Slayers. Now, this works for Void Gloom Slayer, but I'm just going to show it off on Sven's. When you're at the 10 stack, you're doing plenty of damage to actually just one-shot the boss. And recently they made it so that you can just RCM on Sven, so they're super easy to do now. So as long as you're at a 10 stack, when the boss spawns, you should be doing plenty of damage to just one-shot it like so. Now for a tier 4 Void Gloom, obviously you won't be able to one-shot the boss, but you should be able to phase skip fairly easily compared to actually using Aurora armor where you're doing like a 1/5 of that damage. Now the main difference between using Aurora armor and Crimson armor like this is you have a lot less health and defense. So you can easily just star the Crimson armor and bring it up to equal health and defense of the Aurora armor, but the only main problem with this is if you put any stars on the armor, it will become soulbound and you can no longer sell it. Now there's only one main issue with this is basically if this is a bug, it will be patched sometime soon. Now knowing admins, soon could mean a couple years. But it can still be patched, which would make the armor fairly useless. But the biggest thing about this armor is the price. I was able to get each of these pieces with mana pool and mana regen pretty low tier, but still on them, for only about like 5 million coins for each piece. Then I just upgraded the attributes using like Fervor Armor, which has very cheap mana pool and mana regeneration attributes on them. If you didn't already, you can use any Kudra set to level up another one. It doesn't really matter. That being said, this armor set is extremely cheap, especially compared to the very expensive like 300 mil per piece for Godroll Aurora armor. If you do have plenty of money to spend, you could easily just star this armor and make it way better than Aurora. But even at base tier, I would use this over Aurora outside of dungeons. There's just no reason not to. And that does do it for today's episode. If you did enjoy this episode, make sure to leave a like and please consider subscribing if you are new around here, and I will see you guys next time.